Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Business Utility Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, February the 20th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Representative Alexander, Representative Burkhart, Representative Clemens, Representative Freeman, Representative Hale, Representative Holsclaw, Representative Johnson, Representative Marsh, Representative Thompson, Representative Vaughn, Representative Vital, Representative Zachary, Representative Boyd.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Members, before we get started, do we have any personal orders for today? If not, just a couple of housekeeping things. Just a reminder that we will hear our final calendar here in Business and Utilities on March the 12th, and that means that March the 6th at 3:30 is your bill filing deadline if you want it to be heard in this subcommittee. At the request of the sponsor, item number 2, House Bill 2178 by Chairman White has been rolled 1 week. And at the request of the sponsor, item number 3, that's House Bill 2027 by Representative Greg Barton, has been rolled 2 weeks. Members, that brings us to the calendar. And first up is item number 1, that's House Bill 1892 by Chairman Vaughn. Can we get a motion in a second? We have a motion. We have a second. Chairman Vaughn, I see some amendments here. Do you want to go ahead and get those on the bill? Actually, one of them we're not taking up, which is one that was going on by the committee. What's the drafting code that you have for yours?
Hold on just a second there. I have 13987.
That's what I'm showing. So members, we're voting to put amendment drafting code. We have a motion. We have a second. Drafting code 13987 on the bill. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill is amended, and you are recognized for explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill comes to us from the administration. It has to do with providing third-party review services for permitting within the development community. We've seen here not only in Davidson County, but other high-growth areas around the state, whether it be due to tremendous demand or whether it's due to lack of professionals, there can be buildups within plans review times that are affecting projects because in the industry, we like to say that time kills deals, and the uncertainty that excess time being entered into projects really increases the risk. And so I'm happy to bring this on behalf of the governor, because what we're doing is we're taking qualified engineers and architects and allowing them the chance to review plans for building permits. And these people are already licensed, but then they'll also receive an additional certification. And so what we're doing here is effectively putting a safety valve into the system, and we've seen this affect. I know last year we did it with the third-party inspections in Nashville for electrical service, and we've seen tremendous improvement in the delivery of those by the department itself. I know that there's been some privatization of that service. People took advantage of it, and it's amazing what competitive forces do to a marketplace, and those services are being delivered in a more timely fashion. What we're talking about here is a series of checkpoints along the way that a private individual, if they're anticipating a large backlog from a city to review their plans to issue their permits, they can opt for a route where they hire their own review staff. And these people still review the plans, but then they also are constantly in contact with the municipality and the jurisdiction as they proceed along the line. So what we're hoping for is this will do two things. Number one is it will provide a lifeboat for a project developer who can say, hey, we're going to use our own folks on this because we know that the timelines are so backed up. But it will also serve as a way to decrease those timelines and hopefully for the municipalities improve their performance along the way, because this is going to be something that people do have to come out of pocket for and pay for these services, as opposed to the fees that they typically pay the town or the city or the county, whoever's reviewing their plans. And so that's the plan. It covers, it touches environment and conservation, as well as commerce and insurance and those licensed projects. And so I'll stand ready for questions the best I can. This is one of those bills that it is innovative, and that's a way of saying that it at times can be a bit confusing with regards to how we're going to address these things. But I do know that the administration has proposed a path that I think we can work with, and over time will ultimately get better, and hopefully the system will become more efficient because people will have the opportunity to either participate in this way or sticking with the traditional manner. And so with that, sir, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn, for that explanation. And we actually do have someone that wanted to testify. So we're going to go out of session before we take any questions. I've already got a list started here. But members, we're going out of session. I'd like to ask Mr. Randy Dickerson to come forward and take a seat, please. And Randy, if you will make sure that your microphone is turned on and state your name for the record. Okay. And Randy, you're recognized once you state your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate this opportunity to speak. I am today.
Randy, can you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am Randy Dickerson, and this is my colleague Lonnie Nord, who is our association president at the time. We are 2 of 3 of the executive committee of the Soil Scientists Association of Tennessee, representing professionally licensed soil scientists across the state. We are here in support of this bill. However, we feel that our licensed professionals are qualified to help enhance it to achieve the purposes that Representative Vaughn has aforementioned. We're specifically referring in our portion to what I believe starts at about section 6 regarding the wastewater resources portions and the on-site or septic system portions of this proposed bill. As written, the bill refers to water resource engineers. Conversations with several PEs across the state, they really don't know what that looks like either, because they have no specific certification at this point in time within their ranks that actually carries this title. Albeit some do have extensive experience in design of on-site wastewater systems. So to take that a step further, currently TDEC's rules, I believe it's written, there's been some discussion about where that's actually at. I think it's in rule that their policies now require all on-site wastewater systems, i.e. septic systems, to be installed that have an output of greater than 750 gallons per day are required to be designed by engineers. So therefore, that part of it is really not in the realm of what I'm referring to. So step forward, many of our colleagues in the SSAT, myself included, began their careers as employees of TDEC. So one of our principal jobs was the design, the permitting, and the inspection of septic or on-site wastewater disposal systems. So we have, most of us, many, have extensive experience already in doing that. So therefore, those of us, of our professionals who desire, we make great candidates to enhance this legislation to the purposes of the that this bill is apparently driven. So currently, as it is now, we are responsible to be involved. We are out there doing the soil mapping necessary to provide the engineers the design criteria they need to design these systems. Engineers, environmental specialists for TDEC also, and in some cases, just the installers. We can provide a streamlined process for these home builders, real estate brokers, homeowners, to put it all in one package. You know, we can, since we have experience in the design and the permitting of these smaller systems, then we can help to enhance and streamline the time consumption that it's going to take to get a permit and approval on these systems. Because anything less than 750 gallons a day, the engineers are not seeing now anyway. It's simply designed by the environmental specialist. Sometimes a blank permit's just given to the licensed installers who therefore go ahead and install them. So therefore, all this being said, what we're asking for is that we are added to this bill for these systems under 750 gallons a day. I'm not sure that the language needs to say that, because in the TDEC policies, anything under 750 gallons a day is not designed by engineers anyway. I say policies, again, I believe it's rule. So they're not involved anyway. So this will provide a better process. This specific request that we're asking for is already in process in Virginia and North Carolina. And if you look at their process, it's exactly that, you know, the
Mr. Dickerson, your time is up. We give folks 5 minutes to speak, but
Okay.
you can stay there because we may have some questions for you.
we just
And-
asked to be added to the bill.
All right. Who we got? Chairman Clemens, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm unclear. You're wanting an amendment to the bill to address the concerns that you raised?
That is correct. We simply want to be added as licensed professionals along with engineers for that specific section of size of disposal systems. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Speaker Johnson, you recognize.
Thank you for being here. Could you elaborate a little more on where you stopped?
Yes.
Talking about the,
Yes, sir. You're talking about the Virginia, North
Yes,
Carolina
yes.
Act? Yes, sir. They are in process now as we speak, and conversations with those professionals over there, they are dominantly doing probably 90% of the permitting process. They produce a soil map for design. They actually draw up a design for the system, give the installers in time to install it. They come back and inspect it and put a whole package together to present to the regulatory authorities over there. I think it's mostly counties. Of course, here we're talking about a TDEC.
in the states that you're referring to, when they sign off on a permit, if they sign off on something that should not be permitted and something goes wrong, do they assume the liability?
Excuse me. My conversations with those professionals says it's pretty much a capitalism thing, you know, that if there's a problem, that, excuse me, judgments will be made as to where the problem is. And then of course, they're open for litigation, I would assume, you know, they have to carry omissions and errors insurance, and which is not that uncommon for us anyway. But yeah, I mean, it happens in every facet of what we do. You know, occasionally something doesn't just go exactly right, or somebody makes a mistake. You know, it happens. But yeah, she just said that capitalism, you know, takes its play there, and you know, lawsuits are not uncommon. So.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have a question? Mr. Dickerson, I do have a question. So are you concerned if y'all aren't named specifically in the bill that y'all won't be used for soil mapping anymore? Is that your concern?
No, sir, because the bill as written specifically states the engineers have to have a soil map to begin the design process. My point is that, again, along with their sister states, a big, the individual home sites primarily, again, each depending on what type of wastewater output you have, there is a point of where you have either less than 750 gallons per day or more than 750 gallons a day. Currently, under the way, if I'm not mistaken, and I haven't done this many times through the years, anything over 750 gallons a day today has to be designed by an engineer. It's still inspected by TDEC and permitted by TDEC, but they actually do the design. We are just only interested in basically anything under 750 gallons a day, because we don't have the qualifications for those sizing and everything, and we don't pretend to. But today, for the systems the size, which basically is 5 bed in a home, it's 5 bedrooms or less. Most of our professionals have done that multiple, myself, thousands of times. So.
Okay. Members, Chairman Vaughn, you recognize.
Yes, sir, and thanks for being here today.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get this thing down to where I can get it in my head, what
Yes,
it is that you're interested in and how
Yes,
that meshes with what we've got in front of it.
Yes, sir.
I don't see that anything that we're proposing here today is going to preclude you from doing a single-family home site as a soil engineer. You know, I think that what we're talking about here, and that's when you go under 750 gallons, you're going to be a single-family residential structure. Is that correct?
Pretty much. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I think you're cool on this one because I don't think that's what this bill speaks to.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, this bill speaks to packaged wastewater plants, kind of like decentralized sewer systems for areas, those type of systems where they're allowed. That would be a case to where it would need to be designed by an engineer. But you're right, the disposal field would have to be mapped by you and somebody in your trade. So I don't see this being a great windfall of opportunity for your profession, but I don't see you losing any skin in this game either. And so it's kind of what happens outside. This is kind of outside of the single family home site design area. And that's kind of this bill is more focused on that. So systems greater than 750
Okay,
gallons.
that's not spoken in the language. So therefore, I understand where you're coming from. But again, the language doesn't make that clear. I mean, I'm trying to enhance what you're looking for to move everybody's frustrations and difficulties and all moving forward, on all systems, because the way I understand the language is that it would include all systems. I mean, maybe there's some clarification there, but that I'm missing. But
Chairman Vaughn.
It may be clarification of which you're seeking, and it is indeed missing, but this is a messy business that we take care of here up sometimes, no pun intended on this one.
Yeah.
So we'll keep those comments and make sure that we get that addressed so that there is clarity with regards to the fact that we're not moving the requirements to be a licensed engineer to design septic systems, disposal systems for single family homes. That's not the purpose of what we're trying to do here.
Representative Burkhart.
no,
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one quick question. With when you talk about Virginia and other states,
yes, sir.
when they design those, are they sent back to our, in our world, TDEC for approval, or are they sent back just for record keeping? How's that handled at the other states?
I think it's pretty much the same process that this bill streamlines. They produce a whole entire package that's presented to the regulatory authority. And I think North Carolina, I was told it's like a 5-day turnover. They have to either complete it, approve it, or reject it.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Chairman. When I think of streamline, that's something I don't think about at TDEC. I don't, and I really don't, and I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I'm just saying, if we're going to spend $10,000 to get a system done and then turn it back around and send it back to TDEC for approval to go back through it, I'm not understanding I don't understand why we're even doing third party. So, but that's a question for another day. Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Dickerson, I believe that's the end of the questions we have for you. We do appreciate you coming today, and I think the sponsor has agreed to kind of work on this as it moves forward to his committee. So we appreciate you coming.
Thank you, sir.
And we do have the administration, we've got TDEC, Blair Beatty from TDEC, or Valerie Yancey from the governor's office. If anybody wishes to speak, okay. If not, Representative Clemens, who's this directed to?
TDEC.
Ms. Beatty, if you will just make sure your microphone is on and state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Blair Beatty, Legislative Director with TDEC.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So TDEC often gets a bad name. Up
You
here,
don't.
we talk a lot about streamlining and convenience and so forth and efficiency. But I mean, it's my opinion. I think, environmental science and this type of stuff is pretty complicated. And TDEC has a big job to do to ensure the protection of our natural environment. So I'm just curious if you could respond, if there is any way that TDEC sees the need for an amendment here, or what TDEC's position is on this issue as the testimony afforded.
Thank you for the question, Chairman. I have worked with Mr. Dickerson and Mr. McLeod before, and I agree with you that the job that they do is very important. I would defer to the governor's office and the sponsor of the bill as to whether it's necessary. I do agree with the comments that Chairman Vaughn made that there's nothing in this bill that would preclude what Mr. Dickerson is already talking about, but I'm not necessarily sure at this point in time if I think adding it would be bad. So I'm going to say neutral unless Ms. Yancey would like to conflict with me. Okay. So
Thank
that
you.
was a non-answer. Non-answer
Representative
answer.
Clemens, you're recognized.
Yeah, that was interesting. So my frustration is this: when a department that is headed by someone who's appointed by the governor defers back to the governor's office, that does not include the specialists for which TDEC was created to hold and employ, that's my frustration. So, I mean, we got a big issue here. We got wetlands at issue. We've got several things in this bill, third-party water resources, your concerns from soil testers. So I guess my question is, on behalf of TDEC, I mean, if you're going to stay neutral on it, I understand, but that's frustrating for us while we look for efficiencies, while we look for, the realities and find that sweet spot between the necessity of the department and to carrying out its function, but also to realize we need housing stock in my county and others and need to get it built. So I guess I'm just looking for guidance from TDEC on what that sweet spot might be with regards to this legislation.
The legislation as a whole, or what Mr. Dickerson is.
Representative Clemens, you're recognized.
Both.
I think the bill will absolutely increase efficiency and streamline the process. I think I need to do a little bit more digging before I can weigh in on whether or not what Mr. Dickerson is requesting needs to be included. At this point in time, I would say I don't think it could hurt, but I have not vetted that yet, and I would like some time to do that.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last question. So I understand that the legislation will create efficiency and streamline the process as it's described, but will it do so at the jeopardy of wetlands or the natural environment or the soil?
Chairman Clemens, that's more on the bill itself. I think what we're talking about is whether or not these under 750-gallon single-family resident homes, whether they can continue to do that. So we're out of session right now, and this is pertinent to the Mr. Dickerson. So let's go back into session. Appreciate you, Blair, coming, and I'm sure you'll work with the sponsor and Mr.
Absolutely.
Dickerson to get this clarified.
Absolutely.
So members, we're back in session, and we're back on the bill as amended, and we do have a list, and it looks like first up is Representative Burkhart.
And this is for the sponsor. And I know this comes from the governor's office, and I appreciate the bill. I just don't think it goes far enough. To the previous speaker, I think all of us are having housing shortages, and time is money, and we're all trying to, and the words that keep coming to us are, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. And when you say those words and you're in your 30, 60, or 90 days away from even getting able to start digging or putting in a system. And I guess my question to to the chairman is, do we think this is, I mean, are we looking at a 30-day turnaround from once we hire someone, 30 days, 15 days, 10 days? Are we thinking that's a realistic number?
Chairman Vaughn.
Well, now Representative Burkhart, you're wanting to get into specifics. Yeah, I think that what this bill does for us is it becomes a launch pad. It becomes a starting place. Is this going to solve problems? It might solve some. Is it going to solve the vast array of our problems? Probably not. But what it will do is it will give us a system that we can try for a while to see to actually measure the improvements, so that we can find out where we need to increase responsiveness, where we do need to provide ways to allow other people to get involved in the process. And I'm glad my good friend from Davidson County brought it up, is that we want to talk about housing stock shortage and we want to talk about housing costs. But we never, ever, ever look in the mirror at this body itself and look at the regulatory costs that we put into the process that is eventually paid for by the consumer. And the one thing that excites me about this bill is the fact that this is one of the first ever times that we're trying to put reform into a system that has just basically run for years and years and years unchecked. And I'm at least hopeful about that. Is this going to be the best thing since pockets on shirts? Probably not. But we got to start somewhere. And I appreciate the administration's approach at trying to bring in as many things as possible. We even tried to add some other items in here, and they said it didn't fit this caption that we're going to have included in another bill. But we're working towards it. And for that, I appreciate the administration's willingness to even talk about it. You know, it used to be when we'd come in here and we'd present a bill that we thought was very important to us, you'd get a flagged bill. And, you know, and you'd have to fight the department to get any progress to it. Some of us have experience with that. And it can be frustrating. So for this, I don't look at this to be the end all. I think this is the starting point.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you. Yeah, to your point, 35% of housing costs are government regulation. And that, you know, for every $100,000 you spend on a house, $35,000 that comes from some regulation. And, you know, I guess my only point of this is, if we're going to spend $5,000 or $10,000 and hire a professional who's licensed by the state of Tennessee, you know, I'd like for that to work as a person that we trust as a state to do the right thing, make the right call, lay the subdivision out right, lay it out correctly, and it not have to go back for a 10 or 15 or 30-day blessing again. That's my only point. But anyway, thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the sponsor, you and I worked last year on the electrical inspection for Nashville, and I'm glad that the governor thought my idea was so great he decided to copy it. But it's been a resounding success for our city in streamlining and speeding up inspections. And we've had some people make comments about who these inspectors are. You can currently go through a commissioning process after a construction program and privately pay somebody to go and do a lot of these inspections. It's a slightly different process, but this is not uncommon. This exact process happens in many other states around us, around the Southeast. And so allowing qualified engineers to do these inspections and to do these plans, they're doing them anyway. This is just going to make it a quicker process. And when we're looking at backlogs of months right now to get inspections done, and we can turn this around inside of 10 days, it's going to drastically impact the carry costs that people are going to have on these properties and deliver product to the market quicker. So while I don't always agree with everything the governor brings or says, this is a good one. So thank you.
Next up is Speaker Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what I want to ask of the sponsor is, you hire an engineer or a professional to go out and do the inspection, and then you still have to take it to the city or the county for the final approval, or TDEC, somebody else has got to approve it, correct?
Chairman Vaughn.
Yes, sir. That's my understanding that, well, or they can either let it lay or they can reject it, but it's, there's still that, and that's part of what Representative Burkhart is talking about, is that we're still going to have a private government interface at some point in the process.
Do they have a time frame where they're supposed to get it out, or?
Yes, sir. There's all sorts of 10-day windows and
Okay,
built into this thing.
thank you.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in the interest of efficiency, I just got a couple of really short yes or no questions. Is this limited to any specific cities or jurisdictions?
No, sir.
And with regards to the individuals and professionals who will provide these inspections, is there a list, or is it anybody who's qualified who gets the certification is added to the list? Or is it a pick and choose by some state department who actually gets on the list?
Chairman Vaughn.
It's via an application process to get the credentials that you need. And I would assume then it would be upon the individual's marketing program to make sure that your name, there's consulting engineers that are really qualified across the state in a lot of places, but some are better marketers than others. So some get more work than others do. So it'd be a matter of how they present themselves to the regulatory authority and to the market itself.
Representative Clemens.
And is this limited to any size? I saw some exclusions for state buildings, educational occupancies, and others. Is there a size limitation on what size building can be, this can be used?
Chairman Vaughn.
I have not seen it, Representative Clemens, because size in construction can either be size of budget or footprint, and I've seen neither of those addressed in here, so no.
Representative Clemens.
And then my concern follows up on the question by Speaker Marsh is I know we have to get final approval by the permitting agency or the local jurisdiction. But my question is, are we taking kind of their responsibility out of this when we're making them immune from any lawsuit arising from something that they rely on to give approval?
Chairman Vaughn.
Now you're going to talk legal on me. I don't know about immunity and that kind of stuff, but let me tell you, let me follow up to address that from the statute or from the proposed bill to address what we talked about with Speaker Marsh and then your question as well. As it says, no later than 10 business days after submission of the documents required and so on and so forth, the local jurisdiction shall accept the inspection or reject the inspection and provide to the person or the person's designee a report of deficiencies, or request additional information regarding the inspection. And so then once that happens, then you continue to follow up. But with regards to liability for what is contained in those inspections, I would assume that if I was an engineer that the city's not going to cover me. So I would think that if I'm going to go into the inspection business or the plans review business, that I'm going to have to get myself covered with E&O and whatever other insurance that's appropriate for those actions.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you. And my concern is if, we're just saying, we're defending this by saying, well, the local jurisdiction's got to sign off. Well, if that local jurisdiction has no liability whatsoever, I mean, they're just going to start signing anything you put in front of them because there's no kickback to them. And just to the overall part of this, I mean, my question was in good faith to TDEC. I think we do need more efficiency. We need more housing stock. We need to knock down some of these bureaucratic hurdles to the extent they exist, but we've got to find that sweet spot between protecting consumers, protecting home buyers, protecting the environment and other things, but also be able to build housing stock in an affordable manner. And I hope this is a sweet spot. I hope this is one step in the right direction. But I have too often seen in I know my former district as formally drawn, I would knock on doors, one campaign, be a brand new shiny house, and I'd come back less than 2 years later, knock the same door, and the front porch is already falling apart. And so I understand that there are you know, a lot of great developers, a lot of great builders out there, but there are some bad actors. And so I just want to make sure that we are protecting home buyers who are spending, you know, their biggest expense or purchase they'll ever make, especially with housing costs, that we're protecting them and making sure we have things in place to protect them. And so their house ain't going to fall apart on them in 2 years. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, sponsor.
Chairman Vaughn, have any follow-up to that? Okay. I think that is the end of our list. Representative Votto, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this bill. Having been involved in development for many years, obviously, I think we all realize we need to move the process along. It has become very cumbersome in business and the approval process of getting inspections. At the same time, I'm very concerned, more than just housing stock on the commercial side and life safety side, that there are adequate protections. I think third parties can provide it, but at the same time, a large commercial project could be developed and inspected along the way without any other governmental processes that, as that project is then sold to third parties or REITs, we could have a catastrophic issue that kind of fell through the cracks. And so I do want us to proceed with caution. There's some unintended consequences. I think coming back to TDEC, TDEC is kind of whipped up a little bit here for being cumbersome, but at the same time, they have a unique responsibility of protecting not only from water quality in our land and resources, but also we love them over state parks. So they've got a double-edged sword there. So I appreciate what they do and what they're trying to do. I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I would just have us proceed with caution and make sure that we've got checks and balances in this to make sure that we have quality product and things that stand the test of time. So I'm deliberating here and listening, and I'm hoping that wiser minds prevail here as we move forward and do the right thing for Tennessee, not only on the commercial side, but the residential side. So thank you.
Chairman Vaughn, I have a question. There are some, I know Representative Freeman mentioned this, but there are some municipalities and counties that already use outside vendors to do this work, don't they? And I mean, not only his bill, but you develop, I mean, in some areas, are they already using this? It seems like in our county, if you develop out in the county, they already use outside engineering firm rather than having their own engineering personnel. I mean, is that common practice in the state?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily common, but it is available. A lot of it for some of I remember like when some of the areas in western Fayette County were really hot for people migrating from Shelby County out there, that some of the local jurisdictions hired temporary people that had the same credentials, and that's one of the things that we sometimes think about, or that we miss. I feel sorry because just listening to our conversation here among ourselves, it's like, okay, the people that we're talking about offering these third-party services are not going to be as qualified as the people who are doing them now. And I know that's a great frustration to sometimes in not beating up TDEC anymore, but I have people say that they're rejecting my application when it's prepared by someone who is more qualified than the person reviewing it. And that is something that we need to understand, that as a body, that you're going to see fluctuations in competencies, whether they're publicly employed or privately employed. And so that's what we've got to be cognizant of here, to where we don't necessarily assume that because one is publicly employed, they're a better inspector than the one that's privately employed. It's going to be a matter down to the individual and their training and their background. And so I think that what this does is this puts more players on the field where we see we need more players. And what it's doing is it allows for private development entities to afford the cost of those. You almost can look at it as you're providing third-party personnel serving in the role of what the city would do if they had enough personnel to do the job. So you're subbing out the same role on your own dime. And I think that's a great option for people to have if the built-in system is overtaxed at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Vaughn, we say this oftentimes in this subcommittee and your full committee, but streamlining is a good thing. And I very much like this bill, and the little bit of experience I've had with the development, I see a need for it. So I'm very supportive of it. If we have no further questions, members, let's go ahead and vote to send this bill as amended to full commerce. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill as amended is on its way to full commerce. Next up is item number 4, and that's House Bill 2646 by Representative Miller. We have a motion. We have a second. Representative Miller, I don't see any amendments, so you're recognized on your bill, sir.
Bill until the last calendar. And one of the reasons for that, as it is presently written, I want to certainly amend that bill. I did have an opportunity to meet with some executives from the Tennessee Titans. And in that conversation, I said I'd probably need to amend it. And that's what I pretty much want to do. And also have an opportunity to possibly meet with as many members of the committees within that, I think, 2 weeks. The last calendar is March 2nd, 12th, I think. Okay, yeah. So that's my intentions, Mr. And
Now, Representative Miller, as we had discussed, you are going to roll it to the final calendar, which is March the 12th. But if you want to tell us just really briefly about your bill, I mean, we won't debate it today, please, no questions. But if you'll just tell us briefly what it is, in case you haven't spoken to everybody, they'll know what you're going to come talk to them about.
for the sake of transparency, I'm a PSL holder with the Tennessee Titans, which is a personal seat license. And I've held those licenses for over 20 years. This particular bill actually say that if you've been a loyal fan, PSL holder for at least 10 years, that when this new stadium is built, I anticipate the team coming to those PSL holders of current, and it's no telling how much those new PSL seats will be offered for. And I did hear, but we don't deal in rumors, that it could possibly, for example, I think my PSL, and it's not personal for me, but you can imagine that the PSL holders are not only loyal fans, but they're Tennessee taxpayers. And this body, along with us, did decide that we were going to invest $500 million into this new stadium. And I can only imagine taxpayers, again, if they are PSL holders, will have to sit down with the Tennessee Titans and say that you purchased your first and initial PSL for $2,500, $3,000, but we will give you a refusal. The next one may cost you $15,000. I don't know that to be a fact. I've only heard from at least a few people that they think those numbers are going to be extraordinary. This bill simply says if you've been a holder for 10 years, that your price would not change. And I know that's not realistic. You're talking about a new stadium, you've got to build it, you got to pay for it. So I want to go back, have those discussions with the Titans, because they did tell me that within 6 months, they will come out with not only what this new stadium is going to look like, but what the new cost will be. 6 months, we will not be here. So that's here or there. So my new amendment will try to be reasonable and say there should be a certain percentage of the new cost. So that's where I am on that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Miller. We'll let you talk to the Tennessee Titans. We'll think about it, and we'll deliberate on this in a couple of weeks, actually on March the 12th. So without objection, House Bill 2646 is rolled 2 weeks to the March 12th calendar. Members, that brings us to item number 5, and that's House Bill 2309 by Chairman Vaughn. We have a motion, we have a second, and Chairman Vaughn, I'm showing a couple of amendments. Do you need to get both of those on there?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go ahead and go with the first one, please.
014403.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do you want to discuss that, or you want to go ahead and put it on there?
If you'll put it on there, then
Okay.
we'll discuss it in total.
Members, we're voting to put amendment drafting code 14072 on the bill. All in favor, say aye. Okay, wait a minute. Let me make sure. Read that drafting code off again. I'm seeing two of them.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I have 014403.
Okay, well, members, we're voting to put amendment drafted code 14403 on the bill. Do we have a motion and a second on that? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Sir, your bill is amended, and then you have another amendment.
No, so that, we didn't put that amendment we just put on, rewrote the bill after, we did not adopt the first amendment.
Okay, so Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're fixing to hear me begin to wax eloquently about a subject matter that I am indeed no expert in. However, I do think that it's important because 15% of the people in Tennessee own some type of digital asset. I am in the 85%. But we're at a unique time in our state's history, particularly with our infrastructure that we've got with regards to the blockchain network, the fiber that's rapidly going across the state, to look into how we can further engage with this industry. I don't know if you know it or not, but there was a huge convention that was held in Miami every year, having to deal with the asset class of Bitcoin. It has recently announced that it's moving to Nashville beginning this summer for the next 4 years. So over the next 4 years, Nashville will become kind of the epicenter, at least for a week, of the digital platform for blockchain technology. So what we're talking about doing is providing an avenue to address this. This is more of a framework and guardrails as it is anything, so that we can embrace this technology and we can avoid the problems that we've seen it bump up against here in its infamy without much guidance. I know that in Representative Alexander's district, they had some issues with a miner, but basically there's a section of folks out there, or a group of folks out there that are called Bitcoin miners, and what they're doing is they're running computer programs and algorithms that was set aside by this asset class to generate a Bitcoin. That's basically pops out at the end after they do so much work. And as time goes on, these algorithms diminish so that the scarcity of the asset begins to take hold and values built up. I noticed that this morning Bitcoin was worth $57,000. And now then, I don't know why it is worth that, but I don't know why a Honus Wagner baseball card is worth $600,000 either. And so the best way that I can explain this is that this is a valued asset that is not monetary. It's kind of like Sky Miles. It's kind of like my Chick-fil-A points. I can get something for it, but it's not money. And I think that's very critical for us. As you know, how many times have we talked about things that there are concerns about a central bank digital currency, and making sure, we've talked about the UCC in our banking subcommittee a great deal, because folks are afraid that it's the groundwork for setting up a central bank digital currency. This is the opposite of this. This is a private currency. It's not money. It is an asset that private individuals hold and trade among themselves. And so what this does is it creates regulatory framework for these miners. They can create jobs in their data centers, but it also makes sure that residents aren't bothered by them, because data centers typically have some noise issues, particularly with the venting fans. As you can imagine, all of these servers working creates a noise, and I think that was one of the primary issues in Ms. Alexander's or Representative Alexander's district. Also, it provides the fact that local jurisdictions have to provide a zoning classification for these in industrial zones. So we're not saying that these are an appropriate use everywhere, but where they should have a use in an industrial zone which is consistent with any other type of data center. So we're also, one other thing that this bank does is that it's allowing businesses like banks to become custodians of these assets. And so that's another portion of it. We've got a few other items that we're going to be working on as this bill advances with regards to some more regulatory issues regarding it. I would anticipate a minor amendment coming back if we're able to get it out of here before we go to full committee that has to do with a little bit of the regulatory stuff, working with the department on that. But I'm encouraged by this because one of the great things about this is, depending upon where you are, it's a great opportunity for local utilities because these are large power consumers, but they're flexible power consumption. It means if we get into a pinch and demand is up, these loads can be shed rather quickly to where it's not like we're bringing on a hospital or some type of manufacturing process that has to be stepped down. These loads can be shed whenever we need it. And it also provides stable income for some of these local utilities. With regards to places like Metro Nashville or metropolitan Memphis area with MLGW, I believe that they'll probably be less inclined in order to handle their growth, but it does provide opportunity for rural communities. And Chairman, I see you give me the evil eye because I talk too much, but I'm excited about the topic.
Chairman Vaughn, thank you for that enthusiastic explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor? Question has been called, so we're going to go ahead and vote to send House Bill 2309 as amended to full commerce. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. So your bill's on its way to full
Thank you,
commerce.
Chairman and committee.
Members, that brings us to the end of the calendar. So without objection, this meeting is adjourned.